My name is Carrie Thomas-Beck, and I am the dyslexia specialist at the Oregon Department of Education. I want to start by providing a little bit of history about dyslexia legislation in Oregon. So back in 2015, our first dyslexia law was passed, and that was Senate Bill 612. And what that bill required essentially included three parts. The first part was the requirement that the department annually develop a list of approved dyslexia-related training opportunities. The second part of the bill required that one K-5 teacher in each K-5 school completed that dyslexia-related training by January 1st of 2018. The third part of the bill required that the department develop a plan to ensure that students were universally screened for risk factors of dyslexia in kindergarten. In the 2017 legislative session, we actually had new dyslexia legislation pass. And the new bill, Senate Bill 1003, did a couple of things. The first thing that it did is it did carry forward all of the training requirements that were initially required in Senate Bill 612. But what the new law does is it extends the deadline for the teacher training to July 1st of 2018. The second major requirement of our new dyslexia legislation is for districts to universally screen for risk factors of dyslexia for students who are first enrolled in kindergarten, and if a student is not in a public school in kindergarten, to do that screening when they first enroll in first grade. The law requires that the teacher training be aligned with the knowledge and practice standards of the International Dyslexia Association. The law also explicitly requires that the training enable the teacher to understand and recognize dyslexia. Finally, the law requires that the training enable the teacher to provide instruction that is systematic, explicit, and evidence-based to meet the educational needs of children with dyslexia. Based on the language of the law, the components of the required training in Oregon include three focus areas. The first focus area is ensuring that the training enables the teacher to understand and recognize dyslexia. The second focus area of the training must enable the teacher to explicitly and systematically teach the foundational skills in reading using evidence-based practices. The third focus area of the training requires that the teacher learn how to intensify that instruction to meet the needs of children with more severe reading difficulties, including dyslexia. Yes, as of the 2017 legislative session, there is funding available for districts, and specifically $1.9 million has been allocated to assist districts with the cost of the dyslexia-related training opportunities. This funding formerly was part of the Network of Quality Teaching and Learning, and as a result of the new legislation that passed, is now being renamed to the Educator Advancement Fund. Cost for training will vary based on the vendor that each district chooses to provide the training. A vendor who offers a comprehensive training that includes all three focus areas, the cost can range anywhere from $750 per teacher to as much as $5,000 per teacher for a much more comprehensive and extended training. Districts need to contact the vendors directly to schedule the training opportunities. A district could also work with their local education service district to communicate with the vendors to set up a training that would perhaps involve several districts. Senate Bill 1003 now explicitly requires that districts universally screen for risk factors of dyslexia for children when they first enroll in public school and kindergarten. If a child is not enrolled in public school and kindergarten, a district then would be required to screen that child in first grade. There are 4 areas that the screening must include according to the law. The first area is phonological awareness, the second, rapid naming skills, the third, letter-sound correspondences, and the fourth is having a family history of difficulty in learning to read. The fourth factor, the family history, would be a second step in the screening process. So if a child showed risk based on screening in the other 3 areas, a district then would be required to follow up and gather additional information about a family history. Senate Bill 1003 requires that the department provide guidance to districts regarding notifying parents of children who show risk based on the universal screening. The department developed a plan with recommendations regarding how to screen and how to provide notification to parents that was submitted to the legislature back in September of 2016. In that plan, the department outlines recommendations for how to notify parents. The notifications that are suggested in the plan are completely aligned with the guidance provided to districts in Oregon that implement a response to intervention model. The first being that districts communicate early and often with parents. Second, universal screening and progress monitoring does not require consent from parents, since those are practices that are commonly implemented with all students in buildings. Third is that parents of children who do show risk based on the universal screening would receive some type of notification from the district. Fourth is that parents should be made aware of any interventions that are provided beyond the core reading instruction. And finally, fifth, that parents would be invited to participate in any problem-solving meetings related to individualizing intervention. The law does not require that district personnel diagnose dyslexia. Districts already operate under federal regulations to identify children with specific learning disabilities in the area of reading. The federal definition of specific learning disability includes dyslexia as one of the types of specific learning disabilities. That will not change. What will change is that districts are now required to universally screen for risk factors of dyslexia when a student enrolls in school in kindergarten. The data from the universal screening will allow districts to know which children show risk factors for reading difficulties so that the district can provide early intervention to prevent those difficulties from taking hold. Additional information would need to be collected over time to determine if a child does have a specific learning disability. That would be information such as a child's response to evidence-based intervention, as well as collecting information through formal and informal diagnostic measures. I think the most important thing to know is that the expectation is that this individual is not completing a training for trainers. This individual will not be able to come back to the building and train his or her colleagues. Also, the trained teacher will not be prepared to diagnose or to evaluate for dyslexia. This person will not be responsible for universally screening children for risk factors of dyslexia. They could certainly be part of a team who completes the universal screening, but that is not the expectation. The person who completes the dyslexia-related teacher training will be able to recognize the warning signs or characteristics of dyslexia by grade level. This person will be a terrific resource for colleagues in the building who have questions about dyslexia or concerns about a student. The person will also be a resource to parents and the community. The teacher will also be well prepared to sit on the school's student-level problem-solving team so that they can participate in developing Tier 2 and Tier 3 interventions for students who struggle with reading. So Senate Bill 1003 does not include specific requirements for districts regarding intervention or instructional support. In the plan that the Department of Education drafted and presented to the legislature in September of 2016, we outlined recommendations for how to provide instructional support. The basic premise behind that plan is that students who have reading difficulties, including dyslexia, are best served through multiple tiers of support provided by qualified individuals using evidence-based interventions. The main premise behind the plan is early identification of students who show risk factors for reading difficulties, along with early intervention. So a prevention-based approach. The plan outlined steps for districts to follow to provide instructional support for students who show risk based on universal screening. The support provided to students would be provided within the context of general education. This is not a special education initiative. The plan does not identify specific instructional programs or interventions that districts must follow, but instead provides standards regarding what that instructional support should look like. Those standards include, first, that the instruction is provided in collaboration with the teacher who completed the dyslexia-related training. Second, that the intervention or instructional support is aligned with the knowledge and practice standards from the International Dyslexia Association. And third, that instructional support is evidence-based, systematic, and explicit.